Her son's voice turned cold over the phone, as if he were talking to a stranger asking for rent money. Her daughter-in-law's laughter floated somewhere in the background, light, sweet, detached. By the time the call ended, the word mother felt like something they'd quietly revoked. I used to believe families fell apart with fights, loud ones, thrown plates, slammed doors. Turns out they fall apart with politeness, with, we're just trying to help, with that calm, managerial tone that says, you're no longer trusted with your own life. I'm 64, a nurse by trade, retired 4 years ago when my knees started complaining louder than my patients ever did. I raised 2 children, mostly on my own, after my husband died of heart failure at 49. I buried the love of my life and went back to work 3 weeks later because the mortgage didn't care about grief. Everything I owned, every coin saved, was poured into those two, Adam and Lily. Tuition, braces, birthdays I couldn't attend because I was on shift but sent money to make up for it. Money was how I said I love you. Security was how I said I won't fail you the way life failed me. That day on the phone, Adam said it like a verdict. You should be grateful we still answer your calls, Mum. The words didn't even sound cruel at first. Just tired. A sentence rehearsed. His wife, Claire, giggled softly. Not at me, but at something about me. I could almost hear her rolling her eyes. Grateful? I asked. For what, Adam? For everything we're doing, he said, voice tightening like a seatbelt. Managing your accounts, making sure your bills are on autopay. You don't have to worry about a thing anymore, except where my money goes. A pause. That little silence where love used to live. Mum, please don't start again, Claire said, louder now. You asked us to help. You said it yourself. Numbers confuse you. I wanted to remind her that I'd balanced hospital budgets for 20 years, that I'd juggled overtime, debt, and 2 school fees without once missing rent. But I just said, right, I must have forgotten. The truth, I never asked them to take control. It happened slowly, the way frost creeps over glass while you sleep. It started with joint access for emergencies. Then came shared credit cards. Then a power of attorney form slid under my coffee cup one Christmas morning, wrapped in a smile. They said it was for convenience, and I wanted so badly to believe that my children, my own blood, would never use the word help as a leash. After the call, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the phone screen. Their picture glowed at the top. Adam holding Claire, both of them laughing, perfect teeth and youth and distance. I pressed block contact, just to see what it would feel like. I didn't do it, not yet. But the idea tasted good, clean. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the fridge. It's strange how silence gets louder when you realize no one's coming. I made tea, the same way I had for 40 years. 1 spoon of sugar, even though the doctor says half. Old habits are the last things to stay loyal. I kept replaying that word. Grateful. It's what they used to tell patients in the dementia ward. You should be grateful we still visit. That kind of soft cruelty dressed up as kindness. I'd seen it 1,000 times. Children visiting once a week, speaking slowly to the women who'd once changed their diapers. I used to wonder how they could stand there, smiling, while their mother's eyes filled with confusion. Now I know. Detachment isn't born overnight. It's practiced. The kettle clicked off. I didn't move to pour. In the reflection on the glass oven door, I saw myself. Grey hair pulled back, cardigan hanging loose. A woman who had traded her youth for duty and was being told, at the end, to be grateful she hadn't been completely forgotten. When did gratitude become obedience? I looked around the kitchen. The cupboards Adam had painted 2 years ago. The new dishwasher Claire insisted on installing for me. Every corner whispered their ownership. Their fingerprints were everywhere. And somehow, I'd stopped leaving mine. That night, I opened the old cedar box where I kept documents. Marriage certificate, property deed, savings, passbook. My hands shook as I flipped through them. I noticed how many had their names attached now, the quiet theft of trust in black ink. For a moment, I felt ashamed, not of what they'd done, but of how easily I'd allowed it. Love, it seems, makes you blind and bureaucratically stupid. I folded the papers back neatly, shut the box, and set it down on the floor beside my chair. Then I said it out loud, to no one in particular. That's the last time I ask for their help. The words didn't sound brave, just tired. But underneath that fatigue, something else stirred. Small, steady, undeniable. A heartbeat of defiance I hadn't heard in years. I left the phone on the counter and let it ring later when they called again. I didn't answer. Let them hear what gratitude sounds like when it stops echoing back. The morning after that call, the house felt too clean. The kind of clean that comes after you've thrown away something you didn't mean to. I sat by the window with my tea gone cold, watching a neighbor's dog chase a squirrel in circles. Funny how animals still know how to fight for what's theirs. I used to think aging was mostly about the body giving up. The knees, the eyesight, the memory. But no one warns you it's also about erasure. One small kindness at a time until you realize you've been managed out of your own life. When I was younger, I swore I'd never be my mother. She spent her last years in a recliner, afraid to touch the thermostat because my brother said the bill was getting out of hand. She called it love. I called it submission. I was cruel back then, too certain I'd escape her fate. Turns out, we both mistook silence for peace. I remember being 38, holding Adam's hand on the walk to his first day of school. He cried at the gate, gripping my sleeve like a man twice his age. I told him, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll always be right here." And I meant it. Every extra shift I worked, every ache I ignored. It was all to keep that promise. Now that same boy screens my calls. There's an irony in it, I suppose. I taught him responsibility so well that he learned how to use it against me. Claire helped shape it. She's got a clever kind of charm, soft but sharp, the type that knows how to make cruelty sound like reason. I used to admire her. I even told my friends, she's the daughter I never had. When she started helping with the bills, I thought she was easing my burden. That's what she said. "You've done enough, Mom. Let us take it from here." And I wanted that to be true. I was tired, after all. You don't realize how much you want rest until someone offers it to you, right before they chain it to a favor. It began with convenience. "We'll just link your pension account so it's easier for us to manage." Then, "Let's put the house insurance under our address. Fewer mix-ups with mail." Before long, I was signing things without reading them, because they smiled while I did. Because love was supposed to mean trust. When I finally looked, really looked, it was too late. My name was second on half the accounts. Some things in life don't get stolen in a moment. They're quietly reshelved under someone else's name. After my husband died, people told me I was strong. I didn't feel strong. I just didn't have time to collapse. The world gives women like me one role: endure. Don't break. Don't rage. Don't inconvenience. So I didn't. I worked. I paid. I waited. I told myself the next generation would be different. Kinder. But when I see Claire tilt her head just so, that little sympathetic nod before she says something cutting, I recognize it. It's the same gesture my father used on my mother when she'd ask about money. Generations loop back like bad echoes. Sometimes, I wonder if cruelty evolves the same way eye color does. Passed down, refined, adjusted to survive. I think about Lily, my daughter. She lives out of state, married a kind man who builds furniture. She calls often enough, but she's busy with her own kids. She doesn't know what Adam and Claire have done. Maybe she wouldn't believe it if I told her. Maybe she'd think I was overreacting. That's the thing about betrayal. It makes you sound paranoid before it makes you sound right. In the afternoons, I've started walking again. slow, steady laps around the block. The neighbors wave. Some stop to chat. I don't mention any of this. Pride is a stubborn companion. It tells you that some wounds are meant to be carried in silence because explaining them would sound too small or too sad. Still, every step I count. One for each year I gave, one for each time I said yes when I wanted to say no. There's a rhythm to regret. It's steady, almost comforting. But underneath it, something's shifting. The other day, I opened the old file cabinet in the spare room. Folders labeled neatly: utilities, mortgage, insurance, bank statements. My handwriting from years ago, strong, even letters. A version of me who didn't apologize for existing. I ran my fingers over the papers, feeling like an archaeologist in my own life. Every document was a piece of proof that I'd once been capable, reliable, trusted. I didn't cry. I just sat on the floor and whispered, "You're still in here." Because I am. Underneath the exhaustion, beneath the habit of politeness, there's a pulse that hasn't stopped. My mother used to say, "Dignity isn't about how you're treated, it's about what you allow." I never understood that until now. They think I'm weak because I don't yell. But they've forgotten. Quiet doesn't mean surrender. It means listening, waiting, choosing your moment. So I'll keep drinking my tea, making my walks, pretending not to notice their small edits to my life. For now, because every wound teaches something, and mine is teaching me how to stop mistaking endurance for love. It started small, the way most betrayals do. A question too reasonable to sound like rebellion. "Adam," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I'd like to see the statements this month." He was sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling through his phone, the one I'd bought him years ago when he couldn't afford the upgrade. The irony didn't escape me. "Mum," he said, not looking up, "you don't need to worry about that. Everything's on auto now." "I know, but I'd like to see it anyway." He sighed, that deep, world-weary exhale people use when they've already decided you're being difficult. "It's complicated, Mom. The accounts are all linked now. Claire set it up that way for efficiency. You'd just get confused." He said confused like it was a diagnosis. I looked at him, really looked. He used to have such an open face, that boy. Now it was the kind of calm that money gives people when they believe it's theirs. "I used to manage the ICU budget," I said quietly. "I think I can handle my own electric bill." That got his attention. He glanced up, eyes narrowing just a little. "Why are you getting so defensive? We're just trying to help you." The word "help" again. A threadbare justification. Claire came in then, carrying her tablet like a badge of authority. "What's going on here?" "She wants to see the statements," Adam said, tone soft but loaded. Claire smiled. That polished, professional smile she must have practiced in mirrors. "Of course, Mom. You can see anything you want. I'll just print a summary next time I'm home. No need to stress about details." I felt that word, details, sink into me like a knife. Details were how I survived 40 years of nursing. Dosages, names, shifts. The only reason my children had food was because I sweated details. Now my competence was a footnote in their system. "I'd rather not wait," I said. "Just forward me the files." Her smile twitched, barely. "They're in shared folders. You might not have access." I nodded slowly. "I'm sure I can find a way." For a moment, none of us spoke. The air had that thin, sharp feeling before a storm. Adam reached for my hand, too gently, too rehearsed. "Mum, please don't make this harder than it is. We're trying to make things easier for you." And there it was. The full inversion of love. The thing people say when they're already taking control. I pulled my hand back. "Easier for who?" His face flickered, hurt or guilt or maybe annoyance. I couldn't tell any more. "You're overthinking. We just want you to relax. You've worked your whole life." I stood up then, even though my knees ached. "You're right," I said. "I have." He smiled, relieved, thinking the storm had passed. But don't mistake tired for helpless, I added. The room went still. Claire blinked once, then busied herself adjusting the flowers on the counter, her armor of small talk returning. Well, she said brightly, we should get going. We'll call later this week, Mum. I nodded. Of course. They left, without hugging me. Small detail, but I noticed. Their car pulled away, tires crunching over gravel. I stood by the window, watching until the tail lights disappeared. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. Later that evening, I walked into the study. The one they said I didn't need anymore because everything's digital. I opened my old desktop computer, the one collecting dust under the desk. It took 5 minutes to start, fan wheezing like an old dog. But when it did, I logged in. Same password I'd used since 2007, my kids first. I changed it to Note Anymore 2024. And just like that, something shifted. I spent hours clicking through forgotten accounts, utilities, insurance portals, medical logins. Most redirected or locked, but a few opened. Names and addresses updated, my contact information missing. Small edits, surgical precision. They'd been busy. When I finally shut down the screen, the room was dark, except for the blue hum of the monitor fading. My heart was steady, not racing. I realized I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger was a luxury, and I couldn't afford distraction. That night, I dreamed of my husband. We were sitting on the old porch, swing, him reading the paper, me shelling peas. He turned to me and said, "You always see the signs too late." Then he looked down at my hands, empty of shells. I woke before dawn. The house smelled like dust and rain. I sat up and said out loud, "Not this time." I made coffee, strong enough to taste like intention. Then I pulled out a notepad from the drawer and wrote 3 words at the top. Start paying attention. Beneath it, I listed everything I still controlled. My pension, my title deed, the hidden savings account I'd opened decades ago under my maiden name, the one they didn't know existed. It wasn't much, but it was something. And in that quiet hour before sunrise, I felt it, the slow hardening inside me, the calm that comes when fear runs out of fuel. I wasn't planning anything yet, but I had stopped being managed. They just didn't know it. The letter came on a Tuesday, the kind of day that pretends to be ordinary. Thin white envelope, no return address, just my name printed too neatly. I almost threw it out with the junk mail. Inside was a single page from my insurance provider, crisp and clean. Confirmation of beneficiary update, it read. Claire's name listed first, Adam's beneath it, my own signature at the bottom, except I hadn't signed anything. At first, I thought it was a clerical error. I even chuckled, that hollow kind of laugh people make when something unthinkable tries to sound bureaucratic. Then I saw the date, last month. The same week Adam had visited to fix my Wi-Fi. The kettle was still whistling when my hands began to shake. I let it scream on the stove until the water boiled away. When you spend your life in hospitals, you learn the sound of disbelief. It's quiet, a kind of silence that follows the words, "I'm sorry. There's nothing more we can do." That's what this felt like. A private diagnosis of betrayal. I called the company's helpline. A woman named Denise picked up, chipper and rehearsed. "Mrs. Harlow, I see here that the update was completed digitally through your client portal." "I don't have a client portal," I said. "According to our records, you do. Same email on file. 2-factor verification completed via mobile." I didn't need to ask whose number that was. Denise went on about security protocols, passwords, timestamps. Her voice was kind, but detached. She must deal with this every day. People realizing their lives had been quietly edited online. By the time I hung up, I could feel it. That small, firm seed of rage planting itself deep inside. I called Adam that evening. "Hey, Mum," he said, cheerful, too cheerful. "Everything okay?" "I got a letter from the insurance company," I said. "They said there was a beneficiary change." Silence. Then the shift. The subtle tightening of tone. Oh, yeah. We meant to mention that. Claire handled it. Just some updates to keep things simple. Simple? I repeated. Meaning I no longer exist on my own policy? Mum, don't dramatize. It's just logistics. We've been trying to streamline things. Claire's voice floated faintly in the background. A whisper, then a laugh. I didn't sign anything, I said. Digitally, you did. Remember when I helped you set up your online account last month? I remembered. He'd stood behind me at this very desk, telling me to just click approve. I thought it was an update for the Wi-Fi router. I'd even thanked him for helping. Something inside me went still. Not broken. Frozen. Adam, I said carefully. Undo it. Mom. No. Undo it. His tone turned patient, the kind of patience reserved for small children and the senile. That's not how it works, Mom. You don't need to worry about all this paperwork. We're doing what's best for you. What's best for me, I said, seems to make you awfully comfortable. A pause. The kind of pause where truth hovers but doesn't dare speak. Then softly, You're tired, Mum. You don't understand how complicated these things get. I laughed then, sharp and dry. Oh, I understand complicated. I raised complicated. Fed it, paid its tuition, bought it a housewarming gift. He hung up before I finished. That night, I pulled out every file I could find. Bank letters, insurance notices, property tax statements. I went through them like a detective who already knew the suspect's name. The pattern was clear. They'd been tightening the net for months. Small authorizations here and there. Forms helpfully pre-filled. New contact numbers I didn't recognize. My autonomy stripped away not with force, but with convenience. It wasn't just control they wanted. It was ownership. At 2 a.m., I sat on the edge of my bed. The papers spread like evidence around me. The lamp buzzed overhead. I thought of my mother again, her trembling hands holding a heating bill she couldn't pay because your brother said he'd handle it. I used to pity her. Now I pitied neither of us. There's a point in every woman's life when pity turns to steel. Mine arrived that night, quiet but absolute. The next morning, I went to the bank. The teller, a young woman with a kind face and nervous smile, looked over my accounts. Everything seems fine, Mrs. Harlow, she said. All authorized under joint management. Could you tell me who the other party is? She hesitated. I'm not sure I'm allowed to disclose. Then don't, I said. Just tell me if the name starts with a C. Her face said enough. When I left, the air outside felt different. Clearer. Colder. The world hadn't changed. I had. On the walk home, I passed the mirror in the bank lobby and barely recognized myself. Not because of age, but because I saw someone awake. At home, I lit a match and held it over an old photograph of Adam and Claire at their wedding, my husband's ring still on my finger. Their smiles looked honest back then. The fire curled the edges of the photo, slow and beautiful. I dropped it into the fireplace and whispered, Let's see how grateful you'll be when the answering stops. The flame hissed, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt precise. Grief has stages, they say. Denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. But they forget the fifth one, documentation. The morning after the fire, I opened my notebook and wrote 3 new words under yesterday's list. They've mistaken mercy for weakness. I started small, quietly. Old habits from the hospital resurfaced, the kind that keep a nurse alive during chaos. Observation first, then response. I called my old co-worker, Janine, a woman who'd once run circles around hospital administrators with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She'd retired into legal consulting for elder clients, the same people who used to clutch her arm and whisper, "My son's helping me too much." When she answered, her voice carried that familiar mix of humour and exhaustion. "Well, if it isn't St. Margaret," she said, You finally calling to tell me you're bored of pretending to rest? Something like that, I said. I need advice. Legal. There was a pause, the kind born from knowing someone too long. They took something, didn't they? I told her. Not all at once, but enough. The forms, the accounts, the insurance, the word grateful hanging over it all like rot. When I finished, she exhaled sharply. You're not the first, but you might be the first I've seen who's still standing. She explained what I'd need to do. Slowly, methodically. How to revoke power of attorney. How to request statement copies without raising alarms. How to reopen dormant accounts and reroute pensions. It'll take time, she warned. You'll have to act invisible. Let them think you're still under their thumb. I smiled. Something between sadness and satisfaction. I've been invisible for years, Janine. I'm good at it. That week became my quiet campaign. Every morning I brewed strong coffee and went through the motions of old age, online puzzles, gardening, the occasional phone call with Claire, where I nodded along as she bragged about managing our household budget. I let her talk. Let her think the lines were still taut, and I was still tangled in them. Meanwhile, I was cutting thread after thread. I visited the credit union downtown, the one where I'd opened my first account when Adam was still in diapers. The same clerk, older now, kind eyes behind thick glasses, recognized me. "Mrs. Harlow," she said, smiling. "It's been ages. I'd like to review my personal accounts," I said, softly. Not the joint ones. The old ones. Her eyes flickered with understanding. She printed statements, her hands steady but deliberate. "You take these home," she whispered. "And if anyone calls asking, I never saw you." There's a certain solidarity among women who've been underestimated. I spent nights sorting through numbers, tracing transactions like footprints. The pattern was worse than I thought. They'd set up automatic transfers, small enough not to draw attention, but steady, like termites in a foundation. I didn't cry. I highlighted. I took notes. I learned. Janine connected me to a lawyer named Cora, mid-40s, blunt as a scalpel. We met in a quiet cafe. She listened without interrupting, then asked, "Do you want justice or peace?" "Both," I said, "but in that order." She smiled. "Then we'll start with a revocation of authority. You'll need to act like you're updating your estate plan. Keep it cordial, not confrontational." I liked her immediately. Together, we drafted letters, contacted departments, and built a paper wall around what was still mine. Each step felt like reclaiming oxygen I hadn't realized I'd been rationing. During this time, I spoke more with my granddaughter, Emma, Lily's oldest. 17, sharp, too observant for her own comfort. She visited one weekend, bringing cinnamon rolls and an air of quiet concern. "Mum says you've been busy," she said, eyes flicking over the scattered papers on my table. "Just cleaning up some mess," I replied. She looked at me for a long time, then said, "I know what Uncle Adam's been doing." My stomach dropped. "How?" "He bragged about it at Christmas. Said he's taking care of your finances." "Grandma, he said it like you were a pet." Something inside me stilled. I watched her, this young woman with her mother's gentleness and her grandmother's eyes. "Don't tell anyone what you saw here," I said quietly. "Not yet." She nodded. "Do you need help?" I hesitated, then handed her the tablet. "See if you can trace these logins." She grinned. Finally, something useful to do. That night, she sat cross-legged on the couch, fingers flying across the screen. "Got it," she said. "They've been accessing everything from Claire's business email. She probably thinks she's clever, but it's all linked to the same IP address." I laughed. Real laughter this time. The kind that felt like blood returning to a numb limb. "Oh, sweetheart," I said. "You just gave me my favorite kind of evidence." When she left Sunday evening, I hugged her longer than usual. "Grandma?" she whispered. "Are you going to tell them?" "Eventually," I said. "But first, I'm going to show them." After she left, I sat at my desk, organizing the papers into neat stacks. One labeled accounts, one labeled insurance, one labeled future. For the first time in months, the house didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a command center. People think revenge is fire, bright, immediate, consuming. But real justice? It's cold, methodical, administrative. You don't rage through it. You file through it, one signature at a time. By the end of that week, I'd opened new accounts in my maiden name, redirected my pension, and rewritten my will. The lawyer would finalize it soon, and in the quiet that followed, I realized I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I was preparing for discovery, because when they found out what I'd done, I wanted to see their faces, not in anger, not even satisfaction, just recognition, that I was never theirs to manage. Justice didn't arrive with thunder. It came wrapped in paperwork and silence. By the time spring settled in, every signature that had once tied me to them was undone. Every document that had chained my independence now sat in a manila folder marked finalized. Janine called it restructuring. Cora called it protection. I called it reclamation. The first move was subtle. A change of mailing address. Everything, bank, insurance, pension, utilities, redirected to my lawyer's office. Not my home. Not Adam's. No warning, no explanation. Next came the account transfers. It took 3 visits, 2 notarized letters, and 1 quiet conversation with a sympathetic bank manager who, after reading the situation between the lines, said only, "Good for you." Within 2 weeks, every dollar that bore their names had a new home. I closed the joint credit card first, then the shared checking. The house deed was trickier, but the lawyer handled it with precision, revoked the shared claim they'd added for safety reasons. By the time the dust settled, my assets were clean. My accounts were under my maiden name. My power of attorney was revoked, witnessed, and filed. They still didn't know. The reveal came by accident, or maybe that's wishful thinking. Either way, it started with a call from Claire. Her voice was clipped, professional, trying not to sound panicked. "Mum, the mortgage payment bounced. The accounts showing insufficient funds. Did something happen?" I let a pause breathe between us, long enough to make her nervous. "Oh," I said. "I must have forgotten to tell you. I moved everything into new accounts. Keeps things simpler." Silence. Then, "You what?" "Don't worry," I added lightly. "It's all taken care of." Her composure cracked just a little. "Mom, that's not how this works. The bills are in our names. We manage those for a reason." I could almost hear Adam in the background, asking what was wrong. "Well," I said, "you'll have to manage them on your own now." The quiet on the line turned heavy. Then Adam's voice cut in, brittle and loud. "You can't just move the money, Mom. That's not legal." I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "Oh, but it is. You made sure of that when you transferred ownership, remember? Said it was all in my best interest?" He sputtered something, a mixture of confusion and anger. I hung up mid-sentence. They called 8 times that day. I didn't answer. By evening, I unplugged the phone. The next morning, I sat by the window, coffee in hand, and watched a sparrow tug a piece of string from the grass. I thought about how nature never apologizes for reclaiming what's hers. By noon, they were at my door. Adam stood stiff, face pale, eyes wide in that frightened way men get when the ground shifts beneath their sense of control. Claire hovered beside him, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Mum?" he said, voice trembling between anger and pleading. "What did you do?" "I corrected a mistake," I said. "Several, actually." "You're overreacting," Claire said, stepping forward. "This isn't healthy. We were protecting you." "From what?" I asked. "Myself?" "Yes," she said, almost shouting now. "You don't understand how the world works anymore." That one landed differently. Maybe because I saw myself in her face. Young, ambitious, Too sure she was right. It didn't soften me. It clarified me. I understand enough, I said. I understand that you used my trust to build a cage around me. I understand that you thought my age meant ignorance. And I understand that when people say it's for your own good, they're usually lying. Adam's eyes glistened. We didn't mean to hurt you. Intent, I said, is what cowards hide behind when they've already caused damage. Claire took a breath, ready to argue again, but I held up a hand. You'll find the house deed no longer lists your names. The utilities are in my lawyer's care until I decide otherwise. And as for the insurance policies, I let the sentence trail off. Their faces told me they already knew. Adam ran a hand through his hair, defeated. Claire's lips tightened, calculating. You'll regret this, she said finally. Maybe, I said, but I'll do it with my own money. They left without another word. Their car door slammed too hard, a final punctuation mark on a story they no longer controlled. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine, the cheap kind, but it tasted like victory. My lawyer called an hour later. It's done, she said. They can't touch a cent. I thanked her, but the words felt too small. How do you thank someone for giving you your life back? After the call, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the same spot where Adam once told me I should be grateful. The light was dim, the air still. I thought I might feel triumphant. Instead, I felt calm. Hollow, maybe, but peaceful. Freedom, it turns out, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just exhales. Before bed, I wrote one more line in my notebook. Justice doesn't restore what's lost. It reminds you what remains. Then I closed it, turned off the lamp, and slept deeper than I had in years. The silence after they left wasn't peace. It was an ache, learning how to breathe. For days, I waited for the phone to ring. It didn't. What came instead were envelopes, first Adam's, then Claire's. Adam's letter was shaky, apologetic in the way excuses often are. He said things got complicated, that they only wanted to make life easier. Not one word of apology, just justification. Claire's was typed and cold, accusing me of creating unnecessary distance and misunderstanding their intentions. I fed that one straight to the fire. Some words don't deserve oxygen. After that, the world went quiet again. I filled the quiet with small rituals, watering plants, walking at dawn, reading in the afternoons. The house felt different, lighter, not happy, but honest. Neighbours began stopping by more often. Mrs. Bloom with tomatoes, the mailman with longer hellos. I could feel it in their eyes. Pity mixed with respect. They knew somehow. But I didn't need witnesses. I had my peace, and that was enough. Emma came by one weekend, cautious but determined. Mom says you've changed, she said. I have, I told her. She smiled. Good. We sat together in the garden, watching bees weave through the lavender. She said Adam had been quiet lately, ashamed maybe. Claire was furious. Says you ruined their credit. I just laughed. Funny thing about credit, it was never theirs to begin with. Do you feel better now? She asked. I thought about it. Better? No. But I feel intact. Months passed. Then one afternoon, Adam appeared at my door holding a potted fern. His eyes looked older. Mom? He said softly. Can we talk? He sat at the same kitchen table where this all began. I didn't mean for it to go that far, he said. Claire said it was for convenience. I thought we were helping. I didn't say anything. He looked up, voice breaking a little. You've changed. Yes, I said. Finally. He nodded, eyes wet. I'm sorry. I know, I said. But I'm not giving anything back. He managed a small smile. Didn't think you would. We talked about nothing important. Weather, the garden, that fern. When he left, he hugged me lightly. Not as a son claiming something, but as a man recognizing what's no longer his to take. These days, my life is quiet in the best way. I cook for one, read in silence, open my own mail. Freedom turned out to be ordinary, unremarkable, steady, mine. I've stopped mistaking endurance for love. I've stopped waiting for kindness to be returned. Sometimes, when I walk through the garden, I think of my mother, how her silence used to bother me. Now I understand. It wasn't defeat. It was reclamation. People call what I did revenge. It wasn't. Revenge burns. What I did was colder, slower, cleaner. I didn't want to ruin them, only to stop disappearing. They took my voice for weakness. I took it back for proof.